Hi everyone, I'm Stephen and welcome to Audio Nautica. So I've got on the bench today this One-Diff QC Symphony board, which Harrison very kindly sent to me. I've just got a bit of L-channel aluminium temporarily wired up as a heatsink because I don't have an enclosure for this as yet. But I just wanted to do some initial testing on this board, just some basic kind of performance testing. So I've got it wired up to my trusty TM5006 mainframe, and so apologies for the fan noise. This thing does carry on a bit, but as you'll see, it's quite convenient actually to have this thing right here to be able to test this. So I have not turned this on yet. I had to fit fuses, install the heatsink, but apart from that I haven't done anything. So I've got plus or minus 20 volts coming out of my PS503. So if I turn that on, hopefully nothing catastrophic should happen. Let's see. Okay, so far so good. And the Keithley is set to, is currently on the output, and I'm just wanting to measure the any DC offsets, so that's measuring about 1.8 millivolts, which is good. Okay, so what I need to do now is just try to set some bias. So this is not the proper bias adjustment, because to do that obviously you need to have the power rails it's actually going to have. So in real life it's going to have a lot more than 20 volts on the rails. And also to properly do the bias adjustment, if you've seen me do that in a couple of my other videos, you really need to let everything be stabilized, warmed up. So in my experience that means it's got to sit probably for an hour. Some people say sort of half an hour, but I've found that after half an hour things are still drifting. And we need to measure the voltage across R11. So that's our bias voltage. That's actually kind of higher than I want it to be. So I set it mid-range, it's 30 turns, I set it to 15 turns. So there's no load on this thing at the moment, and there's nothing on the outputs except for the meter. So I'm just going to set it for 10 millivolts. Is a fairly conservative bias voltage. Go. 10 millivolts. Yeah, you can see it's sort of drifting already actually. We might just set it to 15 because it's going to drift away. Okay, that's 15 millivolts. Alright, that should be a good place to be just for sort of the purposes of testing. So what I need to do now is I just need to put a dummy load on it, and I need to put a signal into it. So I'll be right back once I've done that. Okay guys, so I've got a dummy load on this and I've got a signal in, so I'm just going to show you how this is set up. Got my Tektronix FG504 40 meg sweep gen hooked up to this. This is, I think, the first time I've actually used this thing in anger, so this is a bit exciting. I hate to think how much these things must have cost back in the day. And so that's hooked up to channel 1 of the 2247A, and currently it's 20 Hertz, so it's a fairly long sweep time. Channel 2 is hooked up to the dummy load. So we'll be able to see the output of the amplifier. So fingers crossed. Let's just see what happens if we put some power on this thing. Okay. A little bit hard to see at such a long sweep. So I might just try going to, I think that looks okay at 20 Hz. Let's just try going to a higher frequency. So this should be 200. I don't know why it looks like there's something on the, what this is. So there's something high frequency on the top of it, which I'm not sure what that might be. We'll just have to look at that. Let's go to 2 kilohertz. Okay, well that looks better. I just reduced the input level. So it might have just been power supply related. Remember, this is not the real power supply that we'll be using, but that looks better. My little heatsink's starting to get a bit warm, so I might just have to give it a little rest and do a little bit more testing after that. Okay, so let's just have a look at more or less 20k now. Yeah, so that's 20 kilohertz. Yeah, so that strange sort of little ringing that we saw before, I'm thinking that that's to do with the test setup, but I know Harrison will be watching this video, so hi Harrison. If you want to make some comments down below, if you've got any comments to say. Also Harrison, it'd be really interesting too, just for you to comment on what are the technical differences between this amplifier, the Symphony, and the SYMPHONY, which was the last one that I built. I'm sure people would be interested to know what the technical differences are. I can see it's got less transistors, but from a more technical standpoint, I think it'd be an interesting thing to know. But yeah, I'm guessing that that funny ringing is more so to do with test setup, which is obviously less than ideal, than anything else. So anyway, let's just press on a little bit now. So this is back to our 20 kilohertz. Next thing we want to look at is square wave. Okay. A little bit of ringing. It's pretty good for 20 kilohertz. Let's just drop back to 2 kilohertz. Okay, yeah. So there is a bit of a ring there, but it's not bad. That's just adjusting the rise and fall time of the actual square wave itself, which is something you can do on this FG504. That looks pretty cool. And again too, some of this could be power supply related as well. I'm not using the most ideal power supply in the world, just this PS503A in this Tektronix setup is kind of the best power supply that I have at the moment. So you know, there's a good chance that that is actually the cause of the ringing. But just turn that off for a second. Yeah, that feels fine. Can actually do something pretty cool with this sweep gen. Let's just switch it back to there. We can actually make it sweep, which is why it's called a sweep gen. So I can actually set, just check what, okay, so that's the top frequency of the sweep that it's set for, so that's 250 kilohertz. I could go a little bit higher if I wanted to. Go up to 300 just for fun. There we go, that's 300 kilohertz. And then if I just go back here, yeah, so we're basically starting at about 2 kilohertz. We're going to do a 10-second sweep, and it'll go up to 300 kilohertz. So if I press this button, it now starts sweeping. Isn't that cool? I know, I'm easily amused. But if I put power on the amp, now we can actually see through the sweep the amplifier's response. So you can watch the amplitude on the bottom trace. Notice as we get to the higher frequencies, there, see it's starting to just drop off. So I'm just going to try to see where that happens. Yeah, probably about 150 kilohertz. But remember that 3 dB is half the power, which therefore means half the voltage. So I'd say the 3 dB response is probably up to, it's probably around 300 kilohertz. Somewhere around there. So I think that's pretty good. And now if we just switch to square wave, yeah, okay. That's not too surprising, I guess. As I said before, I think the ringing is power supply, but that sawtooth is not power supply. But again, that's, you know, that's not bad. That's kind of what I'd expect to see. But if we just turn the sweep off, and we go to, let's go to 20 kilohertz. Yeah, so you can see at 20 kilohertz, which is, you know, a fairly nominal sort of frequency that we want our amplifier to be good up to, that square wave is still pretty darn good. Just see if we can tweak this up a bit too. Okay, it's a bit better, 21, 22. Just a little bit of a ramp creeping in there, but that's pretty good, I think. And as I said, that ringing, I'm pretty sure that's power supply. And notwithstanding that as well, regardless of the ability of the actual power supply to deliver a square wave under load, we've got all this spaghetti hanging off it as well. You know, these long leads running to the power supply, and a fairly unideal sort of test setup. So I'm not too stressed about that at all. So if we go back, okay, back to sine wave. Okay, so I think I'll declare this phase of testing concluded Harrison, if you've got any additional tests that you'd like to suggest, then please suggest away, that'd be great. But we'll wrap this video up. Thank you so much everyone for watching. Please do subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it so much. I'd love to read your comments down below. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video. And I've got a Patreon as well where you can support my work. Patreon.com/AudioNautica. And I really look forward to seeing you on the next video and the next stage of this Symphony build. Bye for now.